Now everyone's going to get quiet. Oh, now that it's recorded.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw 380 people or 390 or so registrants.
Oh, that's not intimidating at all.
You're popular.
Oh boy, oh boy.
Yeah, so it sounds like Tish is in kind of the same boat as yourself, Serpil. I mean, super busy day, going from meeting to meeting to meeting, and then making time for us today, which is just, I mean, we're super excited to have you, but yeah, it can be challenging. I mean, you go from having to deliver on one meeting and then to the next where you're concentrating and then over here. But yeah, excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Dirk. Yeah, Dirk helps us with a lot of projects in my team, so he knows how we move from meeting to meeting with deliverables from each. And
Yeah.
I think, yeah, most people are in the same boat, probably.
Absolutely. Yeah, this morning I was talking about visibility, segmentation, and threat detection. And now,
Yeah.
now it's like, hey, left, right, parts of the brain. Let's go. Switch on, switch off.
All right, just a few minutes away from probably starting here, targeting that 11:30 start.
Yeah, I just want to give everyone a couple more minutes, Dirk, because we changed the time. You know, we were starting at 11:45, and people were joining at 11:30, so we moved to 11:30, and just hoping everyone noticed that.
Yeah, that probably makes a lot of sense. And we have quite a bit of time. We have a full hour and a half, as opposed to some of the past events where we've kind of had it in about an hour or so. So it should work out pretty good.
Thanks everyone for joining. We'll be starting in a few minutes. I think you can start the recording. Or did you do it already?
I already
Oh,
did.
you did.
I jumped the gun. Everything's on recording
That's right,
now.
you did. Then we went all quiet. I forgot that comment.
That's when the meeting got quiet. It got serious.
Yep.
I guess I can just do the quick announcement that I put some information in the chat room for everyone. There's a WebEx team room that you can click through on that URL, and then that'll take you to where we're registering all the different questions. So if at any time during the presentation or the event you have a question, just go ahead to that WebEx team room, and you can go ahead and post it there. And when we get to the QA session towards the end, I'll call your name, and then we can you can ask your question straight to Tish. Thank you.
And you put the URL in the chat? I'll put it here.
Yeah, can you still see it?
Okay.
Or? Yeah, probably.
I didn't see it, interestingly.
Maybe because I posted it ahead of time. Looks like you got it in there again, though.
Yeah. So if you want to join the WebEx Teams room where you can post your questions and we'll call your name at the end, I posted the link on the chat. If you are joining us through WebEx Teams, you may not see the chat, so you may want to come back with the WebEx meeting. I see some of my old friends. Hi, Aviva. Thanks for joining. Of course, everyone is on mute. Okay, we're up to 92.
Oh, Hello.
Hey, you managed to unmute yourself.
Yeah. It's
Great
good
to see you, Aviva. Thanks for joining. Yes.
It's good to see you. It's been a while.
It has been. Tish, Aviva and I worked together in our previous jobs at Juniper, in particular, many years ago.
Yes. Oh, hi. Nice to virtually meet you.
Hi. Okay, I'm going to mute myself again.
Okay. Okay, I think we can get started, 11:33, and I believe in respecting everyone's time. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Women in Technology July session, end of July. I'm Sarpil, and I'm the founder of this program. I'm also a distinguished engineer in Cloud Infrastructure Engineering team in Security BU. Before we start, I would like to start by thanking our sponsors, Skyco, who's the director in my group. We couldn't do this without his support. Also, our program managers, Dirk, Dennis, and Joanne, who really pull everything together. Thank you guys so much for this. A couple of housekeeping items before I introduce our speaker. Everyone is muted, and we ask everyone to turn off your videos to make more bandwidth available for the audio. Post your questions in the WebEx Teams room that I posted in the chat. And at the end, after our fireside chat, Dirk will call people by name to ask questions, at which point you are welcome to turn on your video and obviously unmute yourself and ask the question yourself. That allows us, especially our speaker Tish, to see who's asking the question, and it creates more of a community feeling. And that's the reason why we're doing this over WebEx meetings instead of WebEx events, where it's very hard to interact with everybody else. Given the COVID situation, we want to make sure that we have a way to interact with each other with pace and voice. And that's that. So it's my great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker this month, Letitia Tish Scarborough. She's a cybersecurity technical solutions architect at Cisco, and she's based in RTP. She focuses on the public cloud environment, security products and solutions within those environments. She has an MS in information science and a BS in international business and Spanish. I am really delighted to have Tish join us today with her unique perspective. And I told her that we are in a safe space and speak from her heart. And I welcome everyone to please welcome her and make her at home and also ask her questions. Tish, over to you.
Thank you, Serpil. I appreciate this opportunity so much. And thank you to everyone that has joined and is joining. So as Serpil has mentioned, we will have a fireside chat conversation, but I think it's only right to obviously open the floor up with a little bit about myself, my story, and my journey. So I have a PowerPoint, but I promise you all it is not a death by PowerPoint presentation, okay? I know how we can get here at Cisco, but I just wanted to share a little bit of my heart with you all. So to start off, I labeled this particular presentation Equalish because, in case you didn't know, I'm a Black woman, and there has been a lot of talks and conversation around diversity and inclusion and equality, and there has been some work around those three categories, those ideas. So I named it Equalish on a play of words for Blackish. If anyone is familiar with the TV show, I like it, right? It's a good TV show to kind of relay the Black experience to the general audience. But I named it Equalish because there's some equality happening, but not really, if we keep it open and honest. And My goal here once again today is to, use the colloquialism, keep it real with everyone and share what my experience has been like as a Black woman in technology, as an advocate for diversity and inclusion in technology and what that means. And also the quote I included this morning, I do meditation every morning, and I was listening to a preacher, a late preacher now, he's passed away, Dr. Miles Monroe, and he was talking about character. And he said, lead with your life. Your life is the weight of your words. And that's how I want to live my life. I want to live my life as an example for everyone, all individuals. And instead of talking about it, I want to be about it, right? And so I love that message, and it's something that I want to move forward with. Now, before we hop into all the really deep and heavy talk, if you will, I kind of want to start with my story and my journey. So the first thing I want to do is talk about my family, because they are foundational. So you see young Tish there. That's right, cute with the pigtails, still cute. No pigtails though. But you see me with my family, and my dad. I really, if he's on the line now, thank you, Dad, for all that you have done. Of course, thank you to my mom and my siblings, but my dad is really the reason why I'm here today. I'm getting emotional, but he played a very critical role as to why I'm here. So I saw my dad growing up, working 2 to 3 jobs in addition to being a Wake County sheriff. And he has always exemplified hard work, nonstop hustle mentality, a go-getter. So I'm so thankful for him. My family, technically, all of them are from a small town called Elizabeth City, North Carolina, that's located on the Outer Banks. I was the first one born in Raleigh. And my dad started off as a janitor while he was going to school and even post-school. My mom, she technically only had a 9th grade education. She spent a lot of her time working in the field, but my mom really taught me about spirituality and having trust and faith in God. Yesterday, we celebrated my dad's 57th birthday, and I was talking with my siblings about us growing up and how we kind of were as adults, or how we were as kids, excuse me. And I have a family full of comedians, and so they said a lot of jokes around things. But if my brother and sister are on the line now, I do want to say, thank you, Michael and Keisha, for always looking out for me and covering me, because they taught me about resiliency. They taught me how to pivot, and the skills they didn't know they necessarily taught me growing up. They did. But on top of that, my family, my siblings are older than I, so I am the baby. And growing up, let's see, my sister's 7 years apart from me, and I'm 5 years apart from my brother. I spent a lot of time alone, if you will. And that meant that I had time to myself to do things. And so growing up, I was very theatrical. Very loud personality up front in your face. And if you think I'm kidding, I'm not. I was very theatrical. So I did a lot of theater. So in my mind, I was going to be an actress, y'all. That's kind of how I was carving my life out to be. But this moment in my life, what you see is a picture of me in high school. This was probably my second instance of dealing with racism. And I mean overt racism, in your face, non-subtle racism. I wanted to audition for the role of Dorothy in our school play. And my theater director at that time, when I told him that, he said, "Tish, you're Black." And I didn't know how to take that as a kid. I'm just a kid. But I knew that that was wrong. The first time I dealt with racism was in middle school, when a kid called me the N-word. And even at that time, I reacted. I did slap him, and then I told on myself. But I was always in this funky world of what is going on? Why are things as they are, right? We were taught, Martin Luther King said, judge an individual based on the content of their character, not the color of their skin, but yet I'm being judged for the color of my skin. So it became very frustrating. But even in the midst of all of this, I found a love for computers. So if anyone is out there from the early 2000s, you all feel me when I say dial-up is life. I was raised with AOL at my fingertips, and I loved it. I had a blast hopping on the internet, mainly because I was a gamer. Now, over here you see two of my favorite games, or excuse me, one of my favorite games, which was from All That, a character that Keenan played, where you had to throw peas into the cafeteria lady's mouth. I adored that game. I also love Carmen Sandiego. Now, I kind of model my life after Carmen Sandiego because I love to absolutely travel. And there's just like a host of games that I loved playing. These are all games from back in the early 2000s. But this was kind of where my young, if you will, my young budding for technology came to life, is because I was so obsessed with these games. One particular day, I could not connect back to the internet. The data was messing up, and I had went through it before, and I had called up AOL, the tech support, and I told them, I was like, hey, I'm trying to connect to our dial-up. It's messing up. I pinged the network. I pinged the IP address. I said an IP address for the Nickelodeon website, and I can't access it. And the guy on the phone walked me through the steps. And oh, my dad just joined. Hi, Dad. The guy walked me through the phone, or walked me through the setup. And then I remember my dad walked into the room, and the guy said, hey, your daughter has a gift, like she's really cool and worked for IBM. My dad just simply chuckled, and we went on about our way. We didn't say anything. From there, that kind of made me the family technician, and I started, tinkering with computers. And my dad always called me a geek growing up. So my love for technology was really sparked when I couldn't access something that I really, really loved. And so fast forward throughout my life, I was still tinkering with computers, but I had not declared technology as a major. I hadn't declared it as a focus. My focus was still to become an actress. And so I went and I went to school, and I decided to go and study communications. And then, you guys, I want to be 100% honest with you all. I was a very undecided student in college. So I changed my major 7 times. And I finally landed on business admin. And while I was, dealing, in my courses, I had a thought one day of, man, there's a lot of Mexicans specifically moving to North Carolina. I want to learn more about them. I hear things right from CNN, from MSNBC, the news outlets, from people, but I want to experience what it's like to actually live in Mexico. What does that look like? And so my parents don't know this, but they're about to find out. I actually changed my major in order for me to move to Mexico. So I changed my major from business admin to international business. And so I moved to Mexico. And yes, that's me being serenaded by a mariachi band member. It was a very great time that I learned. Excuse me, decline. Okay. And I was able to meet a lot of wonderful people along my journey from all around the world. This was my first probably experience of dealing with a truly diverse and inclusive environment, considering that I grew up in Wake County, and I went to predominantly white schools. I didn't really get a variation of individuals. This was my first instance and experience, and I loved it. I traveled throughout Mexico and volunteered, but my heart lies with these 2 pictures, and these are my students. This was my first instance of being able to use my voice in order to make a change. And within these pictures, you'll see just my original babies, my first babies, if you will, of where I was able to kind of leverage my unknown passion for technology and for my love for people together. And essentially what happened here is that I saw a gap missing within their educational school system. So what I did was write up a proposal on how the school that I was going to at that time, Tec de Monterrey, Querétaro, could leverage technologies from local corporations in order to bring in technology into the school systems to help the kids have a more optimal level of learning experience, if you will. So these kids really help set the foundation of why I'm even here, why I even pursue technology till this day. So fast forward, once again, like I said, my dad played a critical role because he was the one that said I couldn't go pursue acting, and that if I did, he wouldn't be the one paying for it. So once again, thanks, Dad. You opened the door for me. But that's my first graduation is when I graduated from UNCG. And after that, after me spending my year in Mexico, I went and actually pursued a technical master's degree at the illustrious North Carolina Central University, which is a historically Black university. But I did that, and after graduating is when I actually started working at Cisco, and that's a picture of me kind of quote unquote modeling, faux modeling for a shoot that was done around I Look Like an Engineer. And that moment was very critical in the development of the woman that you see in front of you today, because I've gotten that statement so many times of you don't look like an engineer, you don't talk like an engineer, you don't act like an engineer, which still baffles to me today as to what does an engineer look like. So with that, I'm going to, I guess, hand the floor back over to Serpil, and we can move into the fireside chat portion, but that is just a little bit about the basis of why I'm here, why I'm in front of you all, and a little bit about my background and story.
Thanks so much, Tish. That was really good. It's great to get to know you and your journey. And I love that. What does an engineer look like? As a woman engineer, I went through that in a different way, perhaps, as well. So I want to start by talking about diversity right away. But diversity, lack of diversity, I should say, in leadership, especially in engineering leadership roles. I just want to hear so Women in Technology, we celebrate women by women and all of our men allies who are on this call. But we only looked at it, to be honest, until now from a gender diversity point of view. But there you are, gender and race together. I just want to hear some of your thoughts around that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I once heard a leader say, we're the most diverse organization. And I was taken back by that statement because I looked around at the leadership and I said, well, there's no one that looks like me. So how can you make that proclamation of I'm the most diverse, we're the most diverse organization, because there's no one that looks like me. But I want to relate it back to another story. When I first started Cisco, and I just want to put a disclaimer out there, the same thing I shared with Serpil before, this is an uncomfortable conversation for listeners and for me, but I'm going to keep it real. So when I first started my first engineering role, and I was getting acclimated to the environment, walk on the floor the first day, check it out, you're like, okay, not many Black women, not many Black people, don't know how this is going to roll, but I'm here. God's graced me for it. I'm going to do it. The first meeting with my manager, I met with him. I sat down, and he looked at me, and I looked at him, and he said to me, "Are you sure you want to be here?" And I was taken back by that because I had just graduated top of my class. I had just had an incident where some white kids said, "Oh, you took my job at insert corporation." And my administrator at that time, she was like, "No, Tish didn't take your job. She's more than well qualified for that role." But anyways, I'm sitting in this man's office and he questions my existence in that space. And there's so many other Black people, Black women that have felt that way, where they've been questioned. But I was taken back by that, and I told him, I said, well, I'm here, aren't I? Right? And he was just like, well, I just wanted to make sure that this is what you want to do and this is where you want to be. And I didn't know how to respond to that, in all honesty, outside of what I had already said. And I just felt really off, right? In that moment in time, I felt very off. I felt very uneasy. That environment, that culture it didn't necessarily cultivate me wanting to do work, but at the end of the day, my mind was focused on my end goal. So I stayed in that role. But before I left that meeting, he asked me for my resume. And I thought that was strange once again as to why are you asking me for my resume? And I said, okay, no problem at all. I'll give you my resume. And I went to my team members and I asked them all, and by the way, my entire team was white individuals. I went to them and I said, hey, did he ask you for your resume? And they all replied no. And in that moment, I knew that I was in a sticky situation. And I needed to be able to use the skills that my siblings had taught me, which was to pivot. How do I pivot out of this sticky situation and make it better for myself? And I found myself throughout my career kind of pivoting. So with that being said, I feel like the lack of diversity in leadership starts middle ground, right? I think we do a great job of recruiting. I do think companies do a great job of recruiting, but it's that middle management mindset that really keeps us stuck and really, in all honesty, makes people want to move away from even pursuing careers in engineering or STEM, especially individuals that fall in the intersectionality category, make them want to stay away from it because of incidents such as that.
Yeah, that's a very difficult way to start a job, being questioned by your presence.
Yeah.
And, to me, as a technical woman who's been working in this field for 28 years, it sounds so unreal to be questioned in that way. But it is happening. And I'm going to thank you for sharing that, as uncomfortable as that is. I know that our company is trying quite hard to talk about these difficult issues. We have the employee resource organizations who are now called, I think, inclusive communities. So there's a lot of work to try and address this. So I want to ask a little bit about your thoughts around what can we do? One, as a company, two, as leaders, maybe managers or top leaders in their fields, and three, perhaps through our diversity initiatives. And this is not just a question that I'm asking. We also saw it in the registration. There were a question around how can we help our managers to see the lack of racial and gender diversity? How can we get accountability into our managers for hiring diverse? These are very deep and hard questions. So I don't mean that you provide us a solution, but if you can share some of the things that you think would make a difference addressing some of these things.
Yeah, absolutely. So just for the general audience, I have a couple of slides that I kind of created to help move this story along, especially because we're virtual. And of course, I think these slides will be sent out so everyone would have them. So the first thing I want to say is, have you really tried, right? When we're talking to managers and leaders, I say this question because I often hear people say, oh, Tish, we need a pipeline for talent. We need a pipeline. We can't find any Black people or Black women that want to move into leadership. And my response to them is, one, have you really tried? There is a term out there called horizontal communities. So leveraging communities within organization to help create or structure an organization all the more. We have EROs. I'm part of Cisco Black professionals, connected Black professionals. That in and of itself has a plethora, over 1,000 of individuals globally that are your pipeline, right? So when someone says to me, we can't find Black engineers, we can't find Black female engineers, it always makes me dumbfounded because I'm like, well, I know a whole heap of Black female engineers. So who are you actually tapping into, right? Have you actually looked at your diverse spaces to pull and extract that conversation? Or is it just an easy thing to say in order for you not to actually have to do the work? Building and creating diverse teams is not an easy thing, but also you're a leader. So it shouldn't be easy. You're called to lead. You're called to pioneer something. So leverage your tools at hand. Another thing that is needed is transformative policies. And I can't say this enough. This and there's an article that I have linked in here for individuals to go and look at. But there's a couple of things around transformative policies that I want to say is one, make a commitment for your organization. The thing is, Cisco has made a commitment, right? That they're going to do what's best, what they can do. But has each organization made a commitment that we're actually going to seek out diverse and inclusive talent? Two, don't be ignorant to how leadership is actually, a diverse leadership is actually created within an organization. What I've included here is a slide from the McKinsey, which talks about representation for diversity in actual leadership roles. There's a clear lining and understanding of men of color, women of color, or Black and white, Black and women and men don't actually maneuver into these high-level roles. So being able to actually make an initiative focused around, we are going to do what we can to bring them to the top. The same thing goes for the Latin community as well. When we look at engineering in general, from a woman's perspective, women make up 26%, and then Black women make up 3%. And then there's an even smaller number for Latin and Asian. So what are we actually doing to ensure that we kind of punch those numbers up within our own our reins, if you will? Another thing, going back to the transformative policies, is we cannot be ignorant to racism. Racism absolutely exists, and racism absolutely hurts many organizations. And there's different types of racism that can be explained. Mostly is interpersonal racism. We hear a lot about systemic, which really deals with the U.S. Institutional is more so within an organization, even of itself. But then that interpersonal racism is little things such as they're not a cultural fit for our team. We're not sure about that person because they're a little angry, or they seem angry. She seems angry when she speaks, when she's really just passionate. So it's being able to call out, well, we think unconscious, but once something becomes conscious, you have the opportunity to change it. So being able to call out that now conscious bias and say, I need to pivot away from that idea in order to actually evoke change within my organization. But to sum it all up, it really starts with the leaders actually wanting to make a change within their organization.
Thank you, Tish. I just want to emphasize a couple of things you said that I heard, because it really affects me greatly as I hear them coming from you. One of them is, if you want diversity, you have to look at the diverse spaces. You can't just sit there and say, there's no one in my pipeline. Well, of course, you are in your bubble, so that's very important. Having transformative policies, making a commitment at the company level, they are absolutely necessary. But they're not enough. There is the interpersonal aspect of it where you shouldn't be ignorant to that and understand your own behavior and your unconscious bias. And that's where the dilemma is. When something is unconscious, you don't even realize it. But if it's called out, that's a different matter. How you respond to someone calling that out is a very, very important matter. And I can relate to that quite a bit when I'm sitting in a meeting with another woman and that she's not heard when she says something, and usually a man repeats what she said or what I said. I call it out. I said, oh, she just said that, right? It's the same thing. It's an uncomfortable feeling because it feels like to you as a person, you're making it uncomfortable for everyone, but it's just so important because the less we mention it, the more it stays the same. And then in terms of the company commitment, this is something I'm also believer is that how does that trickle down to the organization underneath? The executive branch can have all the policies, but how do you distribute that? And if there are managers in this call, if there are people with influence on this call, think about your sphere of influence to identify these things and make it more acceptable, making more space for the person that looks different than you. Those are all very, very important things. In terms of the graph you shared, I was very fascinated by that. I don't think that's for technical areas, if I'm not sure. It's general, right? I think the numbers are like half of it when it comes to technical areas.
Exactly.
For the minorities.
Yeah, absolutely. They're almost non-existent in all honesty, which is why I think the chart wasn't even created for them. This is probably the best they could do from a very high level perspective.
Correct. Okay, so now I want to go back to you for a second, your own experience at Cisco and how, maybe your first 6 months at Cisco, what helped you maintain, engaged and be accepted and be part of the company? How have you been supported?
Yeah, absolutely. So this was, excuse me, y'all. My first 6 months at Cisco were unique. So I already shared with you all, my first interaction with my manager. And there's little incidents along the way that kept happening, whether they're microaggressions or whether I had a colleague snap at me, and I was really confused as to why they were snapping at me. So it got to a point where I was like, I need guidance. I need help. I need guidance. And so what I decided to do was look up in my organization to see who's there to speak to, who can I talk to actually help me. I need guidance. I went to my parents, of course, because they're my original support system, and they couldn't provide guidance. I went to people at my church. They really couldn't provide guidance. I mean, I went to a lot of people for help, and I looked up in the org. I couldn't find anyone. And it took me looking in an organization completely out of engineering to find one woman, and I hope it's okay for me to call her name out, Michelle Witherspoon, for help. I lied to you not. And I still have the email to this day where I messaged her and I was like, I need help. I'm about to quit. I'm going to quit and I'm going to be done with all of this because I can't take it anymore. And Michelle talked me off the ledge. And to this day, I thank her because she's the reason why I'm still here, at Cisco mainly. But she talked me off the ledge and she told me to go have a conversation with this lady named Rosie. And I don't think Rosie's at the company anymore. And I met with Rosie, and Rosie actually had the numbers for diversity inclusion in, I think, engineering more specifically. And Rosie really encouraged me, and she was like, Tish, you are a tech gem. Please don't leave. Essentially, that's what she said. Please don't leave because Tish, the numbers for Black women in engineering, they don't exist. They don't exist almost. So, you are here for a reason. It is hard, it is rough, but you have to stick it through. and I did take some time to actually think about those words. And once again, like I said, I'm very deeply rooted in my faith, and I strongly believe that for there's a season and there's a time for everything. And I felt like there's a reason why I'm dealing with what I'm dealing with. There's a reason why I need to battle through. Um, I don't know if I didn't know at that time if it was going to be because I was going to educate the next generation of young Black leaders, and there was going to be another girl that looked like me that was going to deal with this, or another man that was going to look like me. I didn't know that at that time. I just knew that I was going to leave the company because I was tired of dealing with the microaggressions, and I was tired of dealing with the environment that did not cultivate me and my talent, and I was tired of not being seen and feeling invisible. So I don't know if Michelle's even on the call, but thank you because you really changed my life in all honesty. And yeah, so those first 6 months was very rough, Circle, in all honesty. And I'm thankful for Rosie for calling that out in me, for seeing me. And I wish more leaders did that. I really wish more leaders saw their Black employees as people, as value assets, as contributors, and took them to heart. So, yeah.
Thank you. I was just looking to see if Michelle was on the call as well, but she's not, unfortunately. Okay. But still a big shout out to Michelle for that. And a big shout out to you for your resilience and perseverance, because the truth is the company needs your perspectives and your ideas and the way you look at it, just as much as the company needs everyone who's on this call, who are absolutely unique individuals. Mm-hmm. And it's therefore very important to make the company as a welcoming place for different opinions, different looking people, different backgrounds. Which brings me to of course, the question or the role of mentors, sponsors, supporters of equality, especially in more leadership and senior leadership roles. You know, if we're going to make a change, I'm just curious, how do you see that play out from mentors or their sponsor point of view? What advice would you give us in general, reaching out, speaking up? I'm just keeping it open.
Yeah. One, help make space for individuals that don't look like you. The reason why I had to go to Michelle, like I said, is because when I looked up in my organization, there was no one remotely close that looked like me, that could relate to me. And that's extremely valuable because I need that help. I needed that help. I need that guidance. And to not see us represented in engineering spaces, it's sad, right? And if I'm honest, I might pivot for a wee bit. Often Black people are put in roles of diversity and inclusion to make change, but there's other conversations that we can be a part of, and engineering is most certainly one of them. I can't stress that enough, and I'll leave it at that we're not seen there, and that they need to make room for that. Now, as far as mentorship goes, I feel like in my own personal experience, had I seen someone that kind of has journeyed before me in a leadership role, well, actually, let me take that back right quick. I think a year or so ago, I did a middle ground conversation for the STOW organization led by Latita Martin. And in that talk, there's an individual that said, you know, if you look within our company organization and you click down at the organizational map, you don't really see faces that look like yours. And I had responded back to that, and I said, you know, that places a doubt in the back of my mind that these things are even achievable. Can I even achieve becoming a leader within this company, or even within this industry, if I already don't see my face reflected? And that is a hard question to even ask yourself. And the harder truth is that you don't know, because it's a small area of yes. There's a couple that make it through, and it's just like, well, what about the rest of us that desire to hold these roles? So when it comes to mentorship and advocacy and sponsorship, I think there, from a Cisco perspective, right, we do have the multiplier effect, which is a great way to include proximity, right? You want to get close to a leader. I think that is a great way to leverage currently what we have in motion. But once again, I don't think that is the only avenue to get close to an issue, right? We all have Google, right? We have the advantage of Googling. So we're able to Google and say, what is going on within the Black community? Why did the civil rights movement happen, for example? Why are Black people still at a disadvantage? We can all Google and research certain things of our own. And then we all have peers as well. These leaders should have peers to go bounce some questions off of and actually figure out, how do I develop a plan to ensure that I increase diversity within my organization, or that how can I be a mentor to someone in my organization? Now, when we think about sponsoring talent, for example, once again, be cognizant and be much more aware of the talent within your organization. I don't know, obviously I'm an individual contributor, so I'm not privy to all of the workings as around a leader talking to a middle management and what that looks like. But start having these direct conversations. I'm always open for a direct conversation, because it just gets things out the way, all the fluff, if you will, the sugar coating out the way, and say, how are you increasing diversity on your team? Right? You ask that to the middle manager. Even individual contributor, ask your leaders, how are you actually increasing diversity on your team and in your leadership? What does that look like? What does that plan look like? I'll be honest, I'm not sure if my director's on, but that is a question I had asked him. What is his plan to ensure that we have a conscious culture within our organization? What does that look like? What is his plan, right? And there wasn't one, if I'm honest. But he said, Tish, if you help me form it, we can form something. And I'm thankful for that, because that's an example of me having an uncomfortable conversation with him, bringing something to his mind, some sort of awareness to his mind, and then being able to lead an initiative to help ensure that people like me are seen and heard. So I know my answer was kind of all over the place. It's a very broad and meaty topic, if you will, but I think the first thing is being able to have that uncomfortable conversation and ask that uncomfortable question of, well, what are we doing today? And how do we get to a better tomorrow?
Thank you for that long answer. Appreciate it.
Well.
So I'm going to move on to, your answer made me think about also look at the diverse places if you want diversity. And that made me think about the next generation coming up. How do we help the next generation, the leaders are coming from diverse communities instead of one set of communities. How do we make that happen? Can you tell us some of I think you mentioned some of this in your intro, but in the ways that you use your voice, is there anything else you would like to share with us?
Yeah, so I'll start with this picture first. Clearly, I like pictures, if anyone hasn't noticed that. So this is my students from BDPA, and that stands for Black Data Processing Association. And so this was actually a tech academy that I led. They were all in high school now, they're in college, they're adults, but I basically helped them move from their competing team, so they competed on a national basis. So when I first got this team, they were placing in the 10th place, and by the time I was done leading them, they were placing top third. So this was actually a picture after they just won. So this is the first example of me actually influencing my community as best as I can, and talking with them, not just from a technical perspective, but preparing them for corporate, preparing them for the industry. As you all can see, I'm a hands-on person, so I like to be there as best as I can side by side and coaching and developing them as best as I can to say, you know, the environment that you are about to enter is going to be very different than this community that you're in right now. You know, you need to be able to not only understand the tech, but you might encounter covert racism where no one's going to outright say you're Black, but they might make little small inklings that make you feel uncomfortable. Your job is to focus on the end goal. Your job is to be able to pivot and move toward communities that embrace you, not necessarily tolerate you. I always instill with them as something I still say to this day is, you're great, so be great, and don't ever deviate from that. These sort of things you need to, we have to build and instill into our kids. And I do that because growing up, although I had a love for technology, I didn't have someone pouring into me, being a mentor, guiding me and leading me and say, this is the exposing to the world of technology. To this day, these kids still call me for advice, whether that is, Miss Tish, you know, what should I majored in, or where should I go for a job? You know, this is my interest and this is my interest. How can I merge the two together? You know, had I had that growing up where I said, you know, I'm interested in this, I'm interested in that, where can I go? What can I do? So this is just one of the many examples that I've done. Now, since then, I haven't done BDPA, but currently what I do, if anybody ever is looking for, you know, a mentor, or a big sister, quote unquote, I still hop on, you know, calls with people's kids, if you will, and have one-to-one meetings talking to them about technology and the world of technology, but also telling them the truth and sharing, much like I did my experiences with them, and said, you know, once again, my end goal is the focus and not necessarily in the moment. It hurts, it sucks, but until change comes, I'm going to continue to be great because that's what I am and that's what I do. So yeah, I just hop on the phone now. It's not like I do like consultations, but obviously they're for free because they're for kids. But I talk to them about, you know, the world of technology and how their voice needs to be heard and their ideas need to be heard, which is much more important than anything. And I actually just coached an individual this past weekend through his job offer, for example, and he was going into an environment that didn't look like him. So just talking to him about what that looks like, how to navigate it, and how to, in a way, like manage up and level up his career. So yeah, that's just a couple of examples. I know I'm a very long-winded answer.
Thank you. Thanks for that answer. Yes, we may not have a lot of official power, but we have the power of ourselves and offering mentorship to those who are coming after us. And that goes a long way. It doesn't solve everything, but it goes, I think, a long way. And I found that it means a lot to the individual who is seeking that kind of mentorship, which is wonderful. Thanks very much, Tish. So we have a few more minutes before we go on to the Q&A by the audience. Okay. I know it's not in the, we didn't talk about this, but I wanted to give you a little chance to talk a little bit about the work you are doing at Cisco, like your official job and what kind of things you're focusing on, so that people get to know you from a professional point of view.
Right, yeah, I was like, my job. Oh yeah, my job, that's right, I forgot. No, I'm kidding. So as the bio stated, I am a cybersecurity TSA. And I'm obsessed with cybersecurity. I've loved cybersecurity for a very long time. There's actually a book back there that kind of got my start in it. I'll put a picture in the PowerPoint when I send it out so you guys know what I'm talking about. But it's by Richard A. Clark. That really got my start in cybersecurity. But as far as Cisco goes, I focus on public cloud infrastructure. So how do we actually secure public cloud infrastructure? And when I say that, AWS, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud Platform. So how do we actually position our security solutions within these environments? How do we secure workloads? How do we secure the migration from prem to cloud, cloud to prem? How do we secure east to west traffic? What does that look like? How do we actually position Cisco? I talk a lot about the shared responsibility model, which basically says, these cloud service providers secure the cloud, right? The facilities it takes to run these cloud environments. And then also security in the cloud, which is the customer's responsibility, which is essentially they have to protect their data, people, and processes. So from there, I kind of position the value that Cisco adds in those arenas. Now, the next level, right, because we're talking about infrastructure, the next level is application, right? Because a lot of people are migrating to the cloud because of DevOps application development. So how do you actually secure an application? And typically when you build an application, security is the last thing on someone's mind. So now it's a little bit of psychology and also like tech, right? So now you kind of have to retrain the brain of how one thinks about securing data or securing an application. So I'm not like an app developer, so I'm learning that portion, if you will, but it's more so to do a little positioning, we think about tetration to actually secure these applications and being able to understand what cloud computing is and what that means for Cisco, right? We don't necessarily play in that arena, we secure that arena. So being able to kind of balance the two worlds of application security, infrastructure security, and then just security in general from a BYOD people perspective. So hopefully that gave a high level overview. I guess I should say I focus on the partner side of the house. So I don't know, I support North and South America, so just throw a partner out there and support them. But essentially, this is a new talk track for a lot of engineers, right? It's a new motion that a lot of people are having to get adjusted to. I like this morning personally, I did a workshop for Google Cloud Platform and how we can secure their VPC, so their environments. So the conversations are very unique and different. They're very dynamic. But yeah, hopefully that provided some sort of light around what I do. A lot of talking is involved.
Yes, that sounds fascinating. You're right in the most important, most popular field right now. As someone from the security business group, I can relate to everything you're saying. That's fascinating. And thanks for all that work you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so with that, I would like to open it up for questions from the audience. And Dirk, I'm going to let you help us facilitate that.
Okay, we have a lot of great questions coming through on the WebEx team room. So why don't we start with Darlene Renato? You can unmute yourself and turn on your camera, and you can reintroduce yourself if I've mispronounced your name. Do we have Darlene on the call?
Yeah, she's here. Maybe you can unmute her.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm talking on mute.
Thank you.
I unmuted my desk phone and I didn't realize that this was muted as well. So no, my question was more around when did your first experience occur with your manager? And then do you think that at that time that it was actually associated to both, being a woman as an engineer, and obviously that's all going to depend on when this occurred, and then also the fact that you are a Black woman.
Yeah, so that first occurrence happened within my first 2 weeks of starting the company.
When was that? Oh, because I didn't hear how long you've been at Cisco.
Okay, so I've been here for 6 years. I actually celebrated my 6-year anniversary on July 28th, so a couple of days ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for 6 years. So it happened July, well, I guess August in that case, August 2014.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And do you feel that things have changed, that they've gotten better? Have they gotten worse? Are you?
Let's see. I'll say this. Every time I get on a new team, I always feel like managers are looking at me to say, what is she about? Um, and I don't know if that is even mapped to, you know, you don't look like an engineer, you don't look like the rest of my team, because on most teams that I've been on, I've been the only Black woman. So I can't necessarily say yes, I cannot say no, that it's directly that reasoning, but it always takes managers months and months and months to actually say like, oh, she is valuable to my team. Oh, she actually knows what she's doing, and that's a confidence. I mean, if I didn't have like my own support system, right, my own confidence boosters on the back end helping me, I could see myself definitely having left the industry many times ago, many years ago, excuse me, because that's what it always feels like. It's this question in the back of their mind of who is she, what is she about, why is she here, sort of thing. So yeah.
Okay, so do you feel that it's more because the fact that you are a woman and not so much of the color?
Once again, well, how overt racism works technically is no one's going to come out outright and say you're Black. That's why we question you. No one's going to say that. So I can't ever say yes, right? I can't give you a definite yes. I do think my race obviously has something to do with it, as well as my gender, just because I, quote unquote, don't look like your average engineer. And
Right.
I get that, right? I understand that because when he first met me, I want to also put this disclaimer out here. I'm a girl's girl. So I had on 5-inch heels, I had on a dress, I had pink lips, and I had big curly hair, and I looked like Miss Southern Belle. Okay, so I know I don't look like an engineer. I don't talk like one, whatever that really means. But the thing is, I know I'm smart. I know I have high technical aptitude, and I know I can get the job done. And to me, those are the things that should matter the most, and not necessarily you don't look like something.
Right.
When that's a very subjective thing to say.
Right. And you are a beautiful woman too.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you.
All right, we have another question. If Laura Rulas, I know you had to possibly leave for another meeting, but if you want to ask your question really quickly, it'd be great. Are you still with us, or did you have to?
Hey there, am I unmuted?
You are unmuted.
Hey everyone, I just want to say thank you so much, Tish, for today. Very inspirational before I ask the question, and I feel a kindred spirit with you, and I love how you've just been very empowered, whether it's by the spirit, the family that's boosting you up, your own self-confidence. What would you say other women can do to boost and fight imposter syndrome? That's a little bit of what you just spoke about. And I think in my 40s is where I learned, hey, no, I have to be strong in my career and fight for my dreams. What advice would you give the other in career or women that are, our age or older that might be battling this? Thank you.
Absolutely. So I'm really big on communities. So I try to find communities wherever I go to help build me up. And when I say that, I mean not even just within Cisco. So I have a number of communities I'm connected to on the back end that I talk to. I'm not talking about like my close friends. I'm talking about people that are like in the industry with me because I feel like they get it the most. Whether these communities are on LinkedIn or in GroupMe or via Twitter. I'll be honest, I'm a millennial, so I mean, I kind of like I get it, kind of sort of. But I leverage all of these different platforms to help create communities of like-minded people to have them help build me up and to bounce things off of, right? And so I would say the same thing for, I mean, a woman in her 40s, by the way, you don't look like you're in your 40s, so shout out to you, okay? Somebody moisturizes. But I would say the same thing is look outside of Cisco to help build up that community. I feel like when we're living in this virtual world, so it's kind of different where you can't like go see people. But for me, I would leverage something like meetup.com to go find like a like-minded individual, or doing a quick search on LinkedIn for that group that you're looking for to help build you up. And then more importantly, which is why I do a lot of meditation in the morning time, is I center myself. And I think about my accomplishments. I give gratitude to the things that I have done. I give gratitude for the woman that I'm becoming. I don't beat myself up anymore, right? I had to forgive myself for a lot of decisions that I made years ago. But now I give gratitude to the things that I have accomplished, things that I will accomplish. And I think building yourself up first and foremost is extremely important, and what's going to really help propel you as you move forward. So hopefully that provided some insight, and kind of like what I do today to build myself up. And I think it translated to any age group, in all honesty.
Yeah, I agree. I think those are wonderful health practices for self. And like you said, community, I think that's good. Thank you.
All right, for our next question, Jane Booth, would you like to ask one of your questions?
Hi, Tish. Thank you so much for what you presented today. I'm just really excited to see the voice coming through and the passion for the topic and just the good that you're doing in the world. So I have a question along, I heard you share your experience of being the only one who looks like me in the room. I know I've had that experience as well, as being the only woman in the room. So my question to you, Tish, is how do you bolster that confidence to go and take that seat at the table?
Yeah, so I'll start with the quote that I tell my kids all the time is, be great because you are great. So that's one of the ways that I kind of to drum up that confidence for myself. But I would be lying if I didn't say that I get very nervous and I get very inside my head a lot of times. And I kind of beat myself up like, dang it, can I do this? Can I really do this? Can I do this right? I question myself a lot. But I have to kind of build myself up once again by saying that particular quote, and then also saying like, Tish, you've worked hard to get to where you've gotten, no matter what. You know what you're talking about. You have the tools in your toolbox in order to respond to them. The important thing is to show up, and that you know what you're talking about. And I mean, there's been a lot of rooms where I have been the only, and I'm thinking about one more specifically of, I think when we acquired Jasper, and I was the network consulting engineer for Jasper, and I flew to San Jose, and of course the only Black woman in the room, and I had to present to them, and I was very nervous. I was very, 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 very nervous before presenting to them, but I kind of took it on myself to say, if I don't do it, who will? And I don't want to put that pressure on anyone else, but in my mind, how I kind of cope with it is saying, if I don't get up here, show up and show what I'm talking about, what's going to happen to the next Black girl that comes into this space? What are they going to say about her? And once again, that's a very heavy thing to think about and to take on. But I was more than willing to do it because I know that there's a pipeline out there. I'm not ignorant to the pipeline that's behind me. And I want to ensure that the next young lady that looks like me, that talks like me, that acts like me, she's questioned less than what I was questioned. And I really think that's the kind of flow that we have to go in, unfortunately. So, I mean, hopefully that answered your question, Jane. But that's kind of how I build myself up, is be great because I am great. And if I don't do it, who else is going to do it?
Thank you, Tish. That's wonderful.
I just want to quickly give a shout out to Jane, who just asked the question. Tish, Jane is our San Jose chapter lead, co-chapter lead for Women in Science and Engineering. And this program, VIT, is a flagship program out of Women in Science and Engineering. And she does a tremendous amount of work bringing the technical women together.
Awesome.
Thank you, Jane.
All right, for our next question, Madeline Romer, you had a few questions that you had to ask.
Okay, let's see if you guys can see me. Hi, Tish. Thank you so much for talking. It's been so inspiring and incredible to see you today and hear your story. I had kind of two questions. The first one is, you talked about meditating and celebrating, kind of some of your achievements. And my question for you is, how do you keep a record of some wins that you've had or achievements you've had so that you can look back on them and remind yourself that you're in the right place? And if you do that, what kind of medium do you use? Journal, social media? And then my second question, sorry, it's too much questions, is just who are some of your role models?
Oh boy, okay. So listen, for the longest time, I was very bad at keeping record of my accomplishments. And my very best friend, Izzy, she has an amazing memory. She really kept track of that until her and I have a meeting of the minds sort of meeting every now and then. And she was like, Tish, you really need to write down your accomplishments. And I was like, all right, girl, well, help me remember. So a lot of you know, I have a MacBook Pro, and I pulled up notes and I just started writing out the accomplishments. And I would, say it out loud to her, and she was like, well, don't forget about X, Y, Z, right? And so labeling it that way. So yes, now I do keep a list, right? But before, to be honest, probably this year, I didn't really keep a list. Now, another way that I lay out those accomplishments, because you did mention it, is social media. I'll be honest, I love Instagram. Okay? Specifically Instagram stories. So sometimes I'll just post like, hey, I did X, Y, Z, and I leave it there. I'm thankful for that because it does archive it once it's gone. So that's like my second way to keep track of what I have done and what I have accomplished. I wish there was like more, like a better way. And if anyone has like ideas of how I could monitor that better, let me know. And then from a work perspective, I think the token of appreciations and connected recognitions, they keep their own track. So that's very valuable when I go in and I start having conversations around money, or just kind of thinking back and looking back on, what have I done? How have I actually contributed? Because those are all lines that I really incorporate to my story of pitching myself for a new role at the end of the day. So I think leveraging all those various mediums have helped me keep track of the accomplishments. Now, as far as my role models go, this is going to sound cheesy, but I do look up to my parents a lot because I saw my parents hustle for a lifestyle. Like I said, my dad worked 2 to 3 jobs on top of being a full-time Wake County sheriff. And I saw my mom juggling her side hustle and her job. So they really are like the foundational role models. I would have to say Michelle Obama. I think the lady is fabulous. I really do. I was listening to her podcast yesterday. If you guys haven't heard about it, it's on Spotify. But I was listening to her podcast yesterday, just talking about her becoming and who she is and how she's ever evolving. And then also another role model of mine, and I technically have many, but just to keep it short and concise, another role model of mine is Minda Harts, who is the author of The Memo. I value her because she wrote a love letter, if you will, to Black women. And she addressed us. And if I'm honest, when 100% honest, when Lean In came out, Sheryl Sandberg, I did not feel like that story necessarily addressed my story. And The Memo does that for me. So she's a role model because she took a stand and wrote a love letter for Black women, and I appreciate her for that. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, that was awesome. And I love that you do that. I think it's so important. It's so uncomfortable when someone tells you to write down your accomplishments, especially I think there's like a woman side to that where we're like, no, we got to be humble, but so important. So thank you so much for that answer.
Absolutely, for sure. Thank you for asking.
And again, Tish, Madeline is also in the leadership of Women in Science and Engineering as the pillar lead for community giving. And she's done she organized fabulous events for us to give back to our local communities.
Awesome.
Thank you, Madeline. She's also the founder of the Millennial Book Club. So I was suspecting Madeline when Tish showed that book. I'm like, Madeline might put that in the list. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next question is more of an inspirational statement, but I thought it was really nice. Courtney Gray, do you want to mention what you wrote in the WebEx team room?
Absolutely, Tish. I'm a big fan. Hey, Tish. But I just wanted to say I am just so thankful for you. This was such an awesome time to hear your story and an inspirational session. And I just appreciate your willingness to always push for more diversity, specifically in the arena for Black women and men. And I'm just so grateful to you. And just to let you know, you are an inspiration, one on the technical front, as well as the women community in Cisco. And I'm just so intrigued to find out that you are a part of the Jasper acquisition. That's how I came in. So, so awesome. But thank you again. And I adore you. So thank you.
Oh, thank you, girl. I appreciate you. Made me cry. You know it's being recorded. Thank you.
We can always edit, Tish. Don't worry.
Look, thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course. Thank you. Thanks, Dirk. Thanks, Circle.
Oh, our pleasure. I just want to mention something as I'm listening to Tish, your answers. You touched on the communities, and I want to say the reason why I started Women in Technology, this community, was exactly the reasons you outlined. I felt that when I came to Cisco, I was sitting in my cubicle, and I didn't see any woman around, and it felt very lonely. And here we are today, more than maybe almost 200 people attended this session. So while our numbers are small, and as Black technical women, your numbers are even smaller, we're not alone. Like, we're here to support each other, and I'm really grateful that we have opportunities like this one and all the work that Cisco Black Professional Bureau is doing. Whenever it's possible to be part of a community, I think it really helps. It helps me personally to know that we are in it together. Mm-hmm. And I really thank everyone supporting this program, and I thank you for actually talking about the community aspect of things.
Absolutely. Community is everything. My dad taught me that too. So lots of accreditation to my dad.
Thanks very much. Dirk, are there any other questions, comments you wanted to mention?
It looks like we just have one last question that popped in. There was a question from Megan Halton. Do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question?
Sure. Oh, goodness, you're on my other camera. Hi. Yeah, so my question was, we know, unfortunately, and it's been brought to light even more so in the last couple of months, that racism is alive and well. My question is, do you have any advice or guidance for white people like me, like some of the audience, like wanting to step in the situation, like in a situation where we're observing racism, but at the same time not wanting to step on the toes or override the voices of our Black colleagues that are standing up for themselves?
That's a really great question. So hopefully the Black people on the call don't mind me saying this, but I think when I say, on behalf of like the Black community, the first thing we often say is, please do research, right? It's for some people, right? Let me say this: Black people are not like a monolith, so we are very different. We are all dynamic. My experience is very different from another person's experience. So, you asking me a particular question around why XYZ may not be traumatic versus asking that question to another Black person who may take it differently, right? So it's very imperative to do the research, like I kind of said earlier. Starting with why are Black people fighting for equality? Why are Black people fighting for justice? Why are they saying this? Why are they saying this? Why are they doing these things? A quick Google search will help answer that. So I think that's the first thing is self-research. And I think Chuck and Fran have mentioned this as well. Is even reading the book around like white fragility. That was a book authored by a white woman to the white community, more specifically. So she's catering to that audience. And I think from there, there's going to be education and questions that you'll have around you analyzing some of your own behavior from going from unconscious to conscious. The second thing I think is allyship. So I wrote an article years ago. I think it's called like your network is your net worth, and it really spoke around the importance of having a personal, diverse network, and being able to be an ally. So you're able to be a better ally because you have a diverse group of people that you can kind of pivot to and say, hey, if someone says like a negative joke, like a bad joke, for example, or a racist joke, you can say, well, my friend is Black and they don't act like that, and call out that friend of yours, right? That's going to say a racist joke and say like, listen, I don't stand for that, right? That's not who I am. That's not my character. So if you please don't say that joke. If you do say the joke, stay away from me because I stand with these Black individuals. I know a couple of them, for example, and none of them act like that. So it's not okay to categorize and generalize them. So being an ally in that sort of way, being an ally from a personal perspective, which is going to make it easier for you to be an ally in a corporate perspective, right? That way there isn't necessarily any two-facedness happening, if you will, but it's an authentic you coming to light. And then, from there, join the EROs, once again, like these horizontal communities. All these EROs are open to people from all walks of life, in all honesty. If you want to join a local chapter, or if you want to go join the global chapter, if you want to join both, feel free to do that, right? I know for myself, I wanted to learn more about what's happening in CBP Nigeria. So I've taken it upon myself to learn what is it like actually being Black in Nigeria, especially since everyone in the office is Black. So now you're dealing with different issues at hand. So anyways, to say all of that, I think those are just a couple of ways that you can kind of expand your mind and kind of support the Black community, in all honesty, Black men and Black women.
Awesome. Thank you, Rudy. Thank you so much for your answer.
Dirk, I think we have another question.
I guess with the Instagram, everyone wants to follow you on Instagram. We were going to follow up after the meeting, but people are beating down the door. So.
Oh boy. Okay. You want me to give them my handle now, or should we?
You could give it to me, and then I'll post it on the past events site, and I'll make sure everyone has a link to that, and then we can get everyone in touch with you.
All right, y'all don't judge me for what I post now. That's okay.
That's great. Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
It looks like that's it from the WebEx team room. I know there were a number of different ones from the registration site. If you'd like to just have a few more.
Yes, we can do that if you don't mind. How tired are you, Tish, at this point? It's a long session.
I got a good 10 minutes left.
That's great. So some of the other questions were around really career advice. Let me just pull them up. It's on here if I can make my Sorry. Okay. One question was around how to get high school students or earlier, especially from in economically disadvantaged areas, interested in technology.
Yeah.
And yeah, provide them maybe some hands-on experience. What can we do about that?
Man, I'll be honest, that's a very complex question to answer because of COVID. So I'll talk pre-COVID and current conditions. So pre-COVID, how I kind of was able to get, high school students connected to particular resources or even interested in things is I leveraged the Camden Institute. Now, one thing I don't know if the Camden Institute or similar organizations are around such as that, where you can go to like the institute, they'll teach you tech, they teach tech essentially speaking, and they do like triage, so they'll break down a computer, build it back up. But I would take students there to help them get that actual hands-on experience. I also volunteered with Black Girls Code pre-COVID, so that was an easy way to do so. Now, like I said, I'm a millennial, so I do use social media a lot. So when I knew that there was like a Black Girls Magic event happening, or if there was like a in-person event happening in my local community, I would use social media to kind of blast that information out. Now that was important because it's not necessarily just getting the student involved, it's getting the parent involved. And I learned that from leading my tech organization, that if the parent wasn't really in it, the student wouldn't show up. So it took a lot of me actually stressing the importance to the parent around the gift that their kid has, or even being able to spark the gift that their kid has, and laying out exactly what's needed from them from a financial perspective, more importantly, because the first thing that comes to their mind, in all honesty, is how much is this going to cost me? Now, doing that pre-COVID was something much easily done. And if, to be honest, and I'm not saying I'm not trying to volunteer anyone else's money, but if there was a couple of students that I ran across in my programs associated they couldn't afford, for example, like Black Girls Code costs $30 to $5 per student, I would go ahead and sponsor the kid because I care more about that kid being involved than the $35, in all honesty. Now, post-COVID, it's different because now the conversation kind of changes because we talk about the homework gap and kids having access to technology in general. Do kids even have computers in their homes? Do they have Wi-Fi? Is it constantly connected versus being disconnected? So the conversation changes, in all honesty. That one, to be honest, I haven't quite figured out yet from a post-COVID world of how do we help them gain access. The first thing that comes to my mind is how do we leverage corporations to help provide computers for in the home? How do we leverage, our ISPs to provide plans that are budget friendly for these low economic disadvantaged families? I haven't had those conversations. These are just pure thoughts in my mind. But if there's anyone from the sales team that manages any of these ISPs, that might be a conversation we can start having. But yeah, so that was pre-COVID, and post-COVID, I don't really have much insight.
That sounds great. Thank you for sharing those ideas. Yeah, that might spark some conversation, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. I think we have one more question, and that's probably going to be the last one.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like another question got popped in from Michael Butler. Do you want to ask your question right now?
Yeah. Hey Tish, thank you so much for this conversation. It's been phenomenal just hearing about your experiences and your lessons. My question is, have you ever thought about writing a book for young Black women in technology? Because I love hearing your experience, and I know like my little cousins, they'll love to, learn your story and hear about your journey and your experiences.
I kind of have thought about it, but maybe I should put some more action behind it. That's funny you asked that question because I think last week I was talking to some friends and they had said the same thing. And I was like, oh, I'm going to call it sleeping on data center floors. And they were like, wait, what? And I was like, well, I would think I would name it that because I've slept on data center floors. I remember, flying out to Virginia and sleeping on a data center floor to make sure if a 6500 went down, I would be there immediately to bring it back up. So Michael, I think you are my confirmation that I need to write a book. So I'll dedicate it to you for sure, Michael Butler.
I'll go ahead and pre-order it too. Just thank you.
Noted. Thank you.
Please know that lots of support on that front. Do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Your audience says.
Do it. Okay.
Yeah. There was one question that I really wanted you to answer, and even though we are almost done, is Amanda still on the call as guest? Amanda, I like that question, please.
Hello. Hi, Tish. It's Amanda.
Mandy. Okay, sorry.
Okay, so my question was, if you could talk to the CEO of your company, I went on Cisco's website and I saw that there are no African Americans in the C-suite. And so you talked about the glass ceiling that a lot of African Americans face in corporate America. Do you have faith that Cisco will break that glass ceiling, show some examples of that, and that you will see someone who looks like you in the C-suite within the next 5 years?
Thank you for the 5 years. Okay, great. First of all, Mandy is part of my support team, my thought partner, my sister, my friend, my homegirl. So thank you for asking that question, Mandy. Boy, oh boy. Let me say this. Chuck has been CEO, I think, for 5 years. And he has shown great strides from any leader that I've ever seen around talking about this topic and being able to call out racism and taking action on it, right? I know for a fact that Chuck is reading White Fragility, and so is Fran. I know for a fact that Chuck truly empathizes with the Black community. I can't necessarily say yes or no, right, in this moment, but I have a strong leaning toward yes, that someone's going to look like me and actually hold a C-suite level role or be part of his ELT because he's actually making the motions to do so. And there are plenty of Black women that would do a wonderful job being part of his ELT. And I just to call out, like, he's really taking action, just even seeing articles around him not standing for some of the comments that were had during the Cisco check-in and just immediately nipping that in the bud speaks very highly of his character. And I believe he's actually leading with his life, he's leading with his life story. So to answer your question, Mandy, though, because I'm long-winded, girl, I think at least within the next 5 years, there's going to be someone that looks like me. And I'm going to say, Mama, we made it. Okay.
Thank you very much for that answer. For that question, Mandy, I thought that was a great question. They couldn't skip. Well, we're at the end of our time. Tish, thank you so much for making time to talk to us today. And thank you all for joining. And next month, actually in a week, we have Fran as our guest speaker. So come back to ask more hard questions. Thank you, Tish.
Thank y'all. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.